Freedom is not a state of being. Freedom is something that you do. To have freedom and not do anything with it is worse than having no freedom at all. Where you put your own personal freedom and where society puts these freedoms, that gap is so big. You are limiting yourself more than you need because of your biology, because you think that the world is such a dangerous place. But understand that the world has never been safer than right now. The world is safe. The world is extremely safe and accommodating to everything. Understand that the judgment of others is nothing but a figment of your imagination. Understand that you are just a slice in their life, just a flash. And if you understand that these people will actually do absolutely nothing in 99% of the time, no matter how obnoxious you might think you are, they're probably not going to do anything. You have to understand that the default is to not do anything. And that's the problem. That's why people don't take advantage of their freedoms. It's because the default is to do nothing. 99% of people go to a job, they come home, they watch Netflix, they go to sleep, they do it all over again 5 days a week. And during the weekend, they go shopping, they go maybe to a park, and then they go home to cook for the rest of the week. Understand that that is not life. These people are doing the safe thing or whatever everybody else is doing. Sure, you can have a job. Sure, you can watch Netflix. But jolt your brain once in a while to make yourself aware of things. Engage, care more about your job. Care more about those Netflix shows. Do something with that. Understand that all of these things can be so much better if you start engaging with the world by giving yourself more freedoms, by exerting yourself, by expressing yourself, by actually having a goddamn opinion. Nobody's forming opinions. Everybody's regurgitating all that they watched last night. You think you have opinions, you think you have value, and yet those things never appear in conversation. You never get any pushback. To have real, clearly defined values means that people will not really understand you on certain points. They're gonna try to push on you the group think. They're gonna try to tell you this is not the way to live. This is not the way you should do things. This is not really how things are done around here. That's truly what it means to have different values, your own personal values. If everybody agrees with you, those are not personal values because you have not developed any. If everything that you want is exactly like your neighbor, exactly like your colleagues, you have no freedom. You are controlled by your environment. You are controlled by your peers. You are controlled by society, by your biology, and by your fear. All of these things control you more than you do. If everything is the same as everybody else, you're not really exploring any personal freedoms. Understand that most people, when I actually say this, every single one of you, except maybe 1%, are not really taking advantage of the modern day technology, of the modern day freedoms, of the modern day amenities of the world. You are not taking advantage of them. And you wonder why you are so exhausted. You're not engaging with the world in any fun way, in any adventurous way. You're not really engaging with the world in any meaningful way. And you're wondering, why do I feel tired all the time? It's because your brain wants to be flattened. with consuming more, with sleeping more, with doing all of these things, because you do not jolt it, you do not wake it up. You are not really conscious. You are not really present. You are not really free. Understand that that is true about 99% of people. Most people do absolutely nothing with their freedom. They do not take advantage of their freedoms. They do not take advantage of the modern world. They live as if they are back in time 500 years ago. Except they watch a little bit more Netflix. Except they drive a car instead of a carriage to work. Understand that those things are not really expressions of your freedom. To have freedom and not do anything with it is worse than not having any freedom at all. Understand that those who are deprived of freedom have more freedom than you. Those who are in jail express their freedoms more than you when they are in jail. They're doing much more interesting things than you are. That's 99% of people. That's 99% of people. Boring lives, no adventure, always exhausted. They always want to sleep. They don't understand how to be happy, how to have some adventures, how to do some fun activities, how to build their own goddamn values. They do not understand it. And if you think you are special, you are not. I am not. I'm nowhere near as free as I should be. I'm not. I'm just a speck. Just 5 days ago, woke up. That's how it feels. And probably it's actually true. Understand that you are not truly awake. You are not truly giving yourself enough freedoms. Where you put the limit to your freedoms and where society actually has those freedoms put for you, that distance is unimaginable. You cannot really understand until you start giving yourself more and more and more freedom. And look that nobody out there is stopping you. There is no stop in sight. Nobody comes and tells you, stop, you shouldn't do that. Nobody. And even if they do, you go and look back and you go like, is this really worth it to stop? I'm getting all of these things. I'm feeling this way. Is this feeling worth more than the looks on the street? Is this feeling more precious? Is this thing that I'm experiencing worth the prejudice of others? And you have to understand that most people actually don't do anything. And some of them will actually like what you are doing. Some of them will find it hilarious. You have to understand that you think in your mind that everyone on the street or everyone in this world will judge you negatively. That's what your mind tries to tell you all the time. That's how it's keeping you prisoner of your own judgments. You haven't tested to see what the world thinks of those behaviors, of those freedoms. You haven't tested that, but you act as if that's the reality you live in. Until you have tested your freedoms, you do not know where the limit is. Understand that you should also do these things in the boundaries of the law. If you want, I highly encourage it. But until you've tested these freedoms that you can give yourself, you do not know the limit. You do not know it. It's as if you would tell someone that something is good or bad without ever testing it, without ever tasting it. You cannot really do that in terms of taste. You're telling them like it's disgusting or it's good, it's delicious. and you yourself have never tasted it. It is so bad to see all of these people asleep, exhausted, because they do not give themselves freedom. They do not give themselves adventure. They are stuck in a prison that they built out of their own judgments about the world. All of the judgments that you have about the world should be questioned if you haven't tested them for long enough in obnoxious ways, trying to disprove them. Understand that most people try to prove their perspective on life. They don't try to actively disprove it. That's the real way you test your reality, by trying to disprove it, not by trying to prove it. Most people inherently, biologically, try to prove their own perspective as being true. That is called confirmation bias. And you have to work against it as much as possible. Try to disprove all of the things, no matter how positive and negative they are, that you believe about the world. Try to disprove them, not mentally, not in your head. Everything in your head is worthless. So everything in my mind is worthless. Everything that has to do with the mind is truly worthless. As long as it's in here and not put in action, it's worth zero, less than zero. It's worth less than the calories it consumes, as long as it doesn't appear in the world in some way. You might think you are having interesting ideas, but until you put them out there, you will never know. You might think that you have a great idea of a business, but if you don't do anything, it's worth less than the calorie that made it. Understand that this freedom, you only get it once. It's so short, it just goes away in a blink. And yet, everybody lives as if there will be endless tomorrows.